Republicans showed their colors yesterday, during the confirmation of Judge Jackson. It was amazing the lack of couth. It was amazing how rude they were. It was amazing they didn't let their sexism go out the door. They didn't let their misogyny go out the door. They didn't let any of their isms go out the door as they unleashed them all on Ketanji Brown Jackson. But you know what was amazing? The poise that she had. And the person that most categorized it and put it in the right context was Cory Booker, with that great soliloquy that he gave to her in honor of her. Republicans, as usual, in that Senate, they did everything to show exactly who they are. But you know, there was one Republican that stood out. I haven't been watching the other things that he's been saying throughout the other days, but he had one commentary that I think all should see. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Before I move on, just because we've had a number of members of this committee comment on cameras in the court, I've made my position on this clear a lot of times, but if I can give a tiny bit of friend of the court brief in advance, because I think when you're on the court and you all continue to debate this issue, I think it should be a decision for the Supreme Court to make about whether or not there are cameras in the courtroom, not a decision for the Article 1 branch to make for Article 3. But I think it's incredibly important for us to recognize, because I think I differ from a lot of my colleagues on this who are advocates for cameras in the courtroom. I get their position that transparency is a virtue. Transparency is a good thing. I also believe that pen and pad can facilitate a whole heck of a lot of transparency just fine. And it's healthy for Americans to recognize the second and third and fourth order effects of cameras. A huge part of why this institution doesn't work well is because we have cameras everywhere. Cameras change human behavior. We know this. You don't have the same kinds of conversation over the dinner table with your family when you're wrestling through issues and apologizing for something and saying, I said this before, but maybe I should modify what I said. My tone was jerky. My substance didn't account for your position. There's a whole bunch of things that humans can do if they're not immediately mindful of some distant camera audience that they might be trying to create a soundbite for. And Instagram can be useful for some small things, but for intellectual discourse, it is not a friend. And I think we should recognize that the Jackassery we often see around here is partly because of people mugging for short-term camera opportunities. And it is definitely a second and third and fourth order effect that the court should think through before it has advocates in there who are not only trying to persuade you 9 justices, but also trying to get on cable that night or create a viral video. So for what it's worth, I hope that the court doesn't respond to some well-meaning impulses from the Congress to push for cameras in the courtroom, but also some bullying. And there are ways that you can get to a lot of transparency. Audio recordings are increasingly released from the Supreme Court in timelier fashion over the past few decades. So for what it's worth, I'm glad that you on the court are making that decision, and I hope it isn't made for you by the Congress.
Now let me tell you, I think you could see exactly who he was talking to. Ted Cruz, you're showboating. Crowley, you're showboating. And of course, Lindsey Graham, you're showboating. It is amazing how direct he was to those without even calling their name, using cameras in the Supreme Court to make his case. Kudos to you, Ben Sasse, on this one. Now, what you need to do is vote for the woman. Let's see if you have the pelotas to do that.
We
spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.